Pete Marocco, Executive Director of the Dallas Hero Initiative. Welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you for having me.
So, since you and I last spoke, dozens of current and former city leaders in Dallas, even county leaders, state representatives, and now the Dallas Police and Fire Associations have all come out against the 3 ballot initiatives that you are backing. And so I'm wondering, why shouldn't voters pay attention to the warnings that those officials are saying about these 3 propositions?
Well, I think paying attention to the warnings of their endorsement is more important. First of all, the people that we're talking about don't have 8 votes on the city council. They don't have a solution. They don't have a proposition on the ballot. All they have is name calling and naysaying. So you have a bunch of former politicians working with people with close interests to people who have business relationships with the city on one side. They have no solution. They have no alternative. Right now, as we speak, the city council is meeting. At any time, 8 people on that city council could solve this problem. They could vote, they could follow the law, but they're not following the law.
How are they not following the law?
Well, it's current ordinance that we're supposed to have 3 officers to every 1,000 citizens. It's been the law since 1988. It's been achieved at the same pace and rate that we're proposing, even by Tom Leppert, who's a part of this. So first of all, the opposition has called out a lot of, they've claimed a bunch of support that they don't actually have. They've even printed in lies that they have every single living mayor of Dallas in supporting them. They don't. Why would you not Google that before you printed something so unscrupulous? They've claimed that they have the support of a number of people, including specific police officers, that then required them to remove their name, their image, their words from their website. So there's been, I think, a real fact check that's gone on. The other night I was at a debate with Tom Leppert where he claimed to have the support of the organization that we were in front of. And the president of that organization stood up and said, okay, stop. We have not given you our support. So first of all, a lot of the claims that they are making about their support is simply not true. Also, I'd like to point out that we have more police associations that are for us than are against us.
Such as who?
Such as the National Black Police Association, Dallas chapter. I'm sure you saw that they were a part of the press, they made a press release as well.
We've got one. I mean, you have
no, that's
the
one.
Dallas Black Police Association, and the Latino Police Association,
I'm talking,
the Dallas Police Association.
I'm talking to more of them this week. So Dallas Police Association, obviously, we've had many conversations with them. And so, but there are more, you know. There's, I'm sorry, the Fallen Officers Foundation was another one. We've got lots of support, but the most important support that we are focused on is the 170,000 residents who signed these petitions. This is the people's proposition. This is a solution. It is setting a floor in the charter that matches the law and gives the people the power to enforce the law. If the city is going to continue to break the law, then we need to empower citizens to hold them accountable. Look, this coalition is very strange. It's very odd to see. And look, we hear from a lot of rank and file police officers who are furious about the idea that a few people in the leadership of the DPA have aligned with Dominique Alexander. Like, how can they explain that to their rank and file? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. We love our police and we support all of our police. These are some questions that I don't have the answer to. But I do know that building a strong police force is definitely complicated. It's going to take many years. But many leaders in Dallas have done this in the past. And so our leaders just need to get a solution going.
When I spoke with Mayor Leppert about this, former Mayor Leppert, he said that, you know, under his leadership, they increased the number of officers.
400 a year.
But that was a little different time back then in the sense of you had a lot of people who were willing to do it.
Still Dallas, though. See, this is where I disagree. I think that Dallas is still the gold standard. We believe that Dallas is a gold standard city. We believe we are a best-in-class city. You have a mayor who achieved that, and he addressed attrition, right? And then you have the next mayor came in and blamed a lot of the loss that then he had on the prior mayor. All of this is just political minutia, and at the end of the day, we are just people who want a solution for the people of Dallas.
So let's talk about the specifics here.
Sure.
Because last time you and I spoke, and one of the ballot propositions has a goal. Basically, the city would have to have 4,000 police officers and maintain that level.
Right.
and timing
What's
is
required by law?
timing. Well, you keep saying that. Is it really
It's
an
an
ordinance,
It
or
is.
is it really just a
Yeah.
goal of the city?
No, it's an ordinance. Yeah.
So, given that, how long is it going to take realistically? Are you setting a 1-year timeline? Because no one says that's even realistic.
Not at all. And anybody who continues saying that is completely
So
misrepresenting
what is
the
your
facts.
timeline?
We have consistently stated that we believe this can be responsibly achieved in between 3 to 5 years. That is exactly what Mayor Leppert did. He is increasing the police force with 400 new recruits per year, with a net increase of 250 officers per year. Why would people come up with alarmist language about increasing the police force at exactly the same pace that Mayor Leppert already achieved? So the bottom line is, I think that if we really want to look at the facts of what the opposition is doing, I'm more interested than I was ever before. We had no interest in sort of pulling the thread and following the money of the opposition and understanding why their animus is so strong about this. But at the end of the day, stuff is starting to come out. We're starting to understand better why Mayor Rawlings wants to rewrite history, and about the fact that he drove a net 800 officer loss. That's huge. There needs to be an explanation for that. There needs to be a public discussion about that. We are not interested in arguing backwards, though. Our propositions are about the future. It's about getting police.
Well, the fact that Mayor Leppert opposes all of these three things,
Sure.
doesn't that say something?
Well, I'm very interested to hear what that says. I've asked Mr. Leppert many times. I said, hey, his classic line is, it's not the, he's got all these little catchy political phrases where he says, it's not the what, it's the how. It's not what you're doing, it's the consequences. Well, tell us what that is, Tom. Tell us what you're proposing. Tell us what's wrong with it. Here's our how. We've given you our how. It's essentially modeled after exactly what he did. So what's your story, Tom? What is your how? Why can't you get 8 city council members to come to a resolution just to get this city back in compliance with the law? So why can't we have a minimum staffing of 3 officers per every 1,000 citizens? And right now we only have 2.2. Why don't we have 8 city council members that can do that? Tom, tell me your how.
The city has every year had a goal of hiring 250 officers. So what's wrong with that? I mean, nationally, cities are vying and trying to compete for officers, but they say it's a very difficult challenge. We've heard that from all the cities. Yeah. No one's saying this is easy.
No, the biggest problem is attrition. Here in Dallas, you have starting officer's salary that's $12,000 lower than Plano. I don't think we have to explain to anybody in the Metroplex about the difference in the danger that Dallas police officers face on a shift where they're only going to be responding to priority 1 and priority 2 calls. That means that Dallas police officers, every time they go on shift, they are not going out to write traffic tickets. They are going out in the middle of the night to respond to murders, shootings, stabbings, violence with the risk of loss of life. And right now the response time in South Dallas for those category 2, those priority 2 calls with violent crime with risk of death is 184 minutes. That is inexcusable, and it's not criticism of the police. It's a society problem. We need to give them adequate staffing, period.
One of the things that the former mayors have told me, and they've said publicly, is that it would basically tie the hands of the city council members and the mayor who are duly elected to represent the people. And it would force them to, obviously, when you're going to hire 4,000 officers over a certain period of time, it's going to cost money. You said yourself it's going to cost the city $185.5 million. That's what you told me the last time. And so I'm wondering, money's got to come from somewhere.
New revenue. We've got plenty of it.
Well, there is new revenue, but at the same time, things, inflation, et cetera. And so I'm wondering, do you acknowledge that this is going to create a hardship if the city...
Not at all. Let's go through the math because they haven't presented any. So the math of this is that next year we're going to have more than $450 million in new revenue in a $5 billion budget. The amount of money we're talking about year over year of making sure that the police is adequately staffed. And keep in mind, this is the #1 priority of every Dallas resident on the survey. Actually, I shouldn't go ahead and say every Dallas resident, but consistently in our surveys, crime and making sure we have adequate police is always #1. To get to that staff, we're talking about a couple of quarters. We're talking about a couple of quarters on $100. If the entire Dallas budget is a $100 bill, we are talking about 4 or 5 quarters to adequately increase the police force, and that's every year. In the increase phase, this is in the first 3 to 5 years, that entire thing could be funded in less than half of the new revenue that we're talking about just for this year. Again, $450 million, $185 million is the cost, and we're talking about spreading that $185 million over 3 to 5 years. That is a salient, solvent plan. What does the opposition have to say about that? Nothing. All they've got is name calling. They don't have any math. They don't have a solution. They haven't said that we're going to get there in 3 to 5 years. At best, what they've said is that they are going to exhaust our police force even more with 14 and 16-hour shifts. Is that a good idea, to have police officers who are exhausted and going out and only facing the worst of crime, not responding to property crime at all? This is just unrealistic, and the bottom line is the reason it became law is because the city of Dallas recognized that this is too important to let it go to political whims or irresponsible politicians that don't address it. So now we have to go even one step further. When the city council breaks the law, when the city manager breaks the law, we need to have accountability.
And you're saying that accountability is the ability for members of the public to just sue the city?
Well, Propositions S and T. Proposition T, first of all, if the city manager, after her first 2 years in office, gets results, then there's nothing to worry about. They're going to have a fantastic performance-based compensation that they're going to get. Proposition S would allow a resident, after 60 days notice, after individualized harm, after a recognizing an actual violation of the law, only to enforce the law. This is a big mistake about the information that the opposition's putting out. They're telling people that there's going to be all these frivolous lawsuits. There's no money damages. You know, this story I heard about this guy whose house was flooded by a water main break. This does not change anything for that man. I wish it did. I wish that man could sue the city and say, hey, you're responsible for destroying my house, but it's not. And so this law does not change that. So somebody saying that there's going to be frivolous lawsuits every time trash is delayed, that's nonsense.
And then the other proposition, T, as far as the city manager's compensation or whether they're fired, you leave it up to a group of 1,400 people.
Not 1,400. 1,400 is the current standard. That's what the city survey currently holds. That's the same survey that Mike Rawlings used. It's exactly the same questions that they use. If you read the proposition, and I'll point you to it right here, it says right here at the top of Proposition T, if you look at section B1, it says right there, the annual community survey shall minimally contain the same questions asked and utilize the same methodology as the City of Dallas 2023 community survey. It's exactly the same format. And not only that, that provides the city council members the ability to take this up to 14,000, to take it up to 140. They can make it as high as they want. The only thing we've said in here is you can't go any lower than the current floor for the current survey that they already have.
Doesn't this tie the hands, though, of city council?
How? They would have the ability to add more questions. They would have the ability to increase the standard and the participation if that's what they want to require. But at the end of the day, the city manager works for us. They work for the people.
And they answer to the council. So isn't the form of, get rid of the council members?
Oh, absolutely. But how has that worked for the past 16 years of total failure? And we've got.
That's up to the public.
Sure. Well, at the end of the day, we still have to, each district only elects their district. And if we have this caustic combination of council members who can never get to 8 votes, and that's where we're at right now. Look at the city, again, the city council is in session right now. Why can't they get to 8 votes on this? Come up with a solution. And at the end of the day, they don't have one.
As you know, there are a lot of questions about who is backing you. Monty Bennett has come out and said publicly.
It's funny, I've got actually more questions about who's backing the opposition.
Okay, well, let's talk about your group for a second.
Yeah, sure.
And so, as far as you've got Monty Bennett, those are the only 2 people. You are the only 2 people that I've seen come out and really advocate for these propositions. Who are these other people?
So I know of dozens that have come out. I know that dozens.
Where are they?
Well, first of all, it's not my place to speak on behalf
But
of anyone else.
wouldn't that help your argument?
You know,
Because right now it
it
just
might.
seems
It
like
might, but at the
you
end of the
have
day-
two people.
At the end of the day, it's their decision. It's each donor's decision. It's, for instance, every donor to the opposition has decided to maintain silence and anonymity. Every single donor has decided to not say that they are supporting the opposition. And here we are, we have disclosed many of these, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of anybody. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else that's a donor besides myself today. So there are many other donors who have publicly listed their names, who have sent out invitations to thousands of people to our fundraisers. And
Would you be willing to share them?
No,
I mean, because
it's not mine to share.
But if they've publicized it and gotten out there, why would that hurt your effort?
Well, at the end of the day, if anybody who, first of all, any donor who says, hey, Pete, I want you to go out and be my spokesperson, I'm happy to do it. But that's not something that is relevant. At the end of the day, the 170,000 residents who signed these petitions, they are the ones who I represent.
And I was on Monty Bennett's X feed, I was looking, there were some conservative commentators saying this is a good conservative blueprint, I believe that's how they described it, to running a city. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'd have to see the comment that you're talking about. I don't know what that is.
But would you agree with that, basically, given the ballot propositions that you're advocating?
Well,
would you say this is a good conservative way for a city to be run? Is that fair?
Well, no, I want to be careful about my answer with that because
Okay.
we're nonpartisan. We're strictly nonpartisan. We've reached out to both parties. We've gotten the full-throated endorsement of one. The other one was not giving us much response, though we did get many people on both sides of the aisle that reached out to us. This is not a partisan effort. There is no conservative plot or anything like that. This is just good governance. You need minimum safety. You need minimum public safety. That's what this is about. You need minimum accountability, and you need mechanisms of enforcement that empower the people. That is what this is about. Everything we're doing gives power back to the people. And the problem with that for City Council is that they do not want to be held accountable. You have a small group. Look at the opposition is a small group of people who represent business interests, who have contracts with the city, and people who are politicians. If you are not a person who has a text message stream with one of these corrupt politicians that's on City Council, then you are one of us.
So let me ask you, let me just follow up on the thing you said before about being nonpartisan. Monty Bennett is not nonpartisan. He's obviously very conservative. And so how do you square that? Because he's obviously been very vocal in backing this.
He's one donor. That's it. I'm not going to speak on his behalf. He's one donor, and he's certainly free to have his opinions. We have definitely gotten support from Democrats. We've definitely gotten support from people who have called us and said, I love Ron Kirk, but I am voting this way. I actually got some great video yesterday, actually it was a couple days ago, in front of City Hall. And we had some people that were telling us how they were voting for Kamala Harris and they were voting for Propositions STU. And these are people who feel the effects of this. I spoke with a homeless man at City Hall who told me that he watched one of his friends get raped, a man right next to City Hall. There are people with they're really suffering here. And we need to think about how to take care of them. And homelessness is addressed in these. And if we don't have a solution, right now you have a homeless colony living outside of one of the city halls of one of the most opulent cities that should be the most opulent cities in America. And yet we're not even following the law to have the minimum number of police. And people like him know that the police aren't going to come around in the middle of the night. They're not going to come around when he's trying to get a bite to eat. And he's scared, and he outlined his fear. And we need to care for these people, and we need better solutions for them.
My last question to you is what you said before just about the business. You're saying, if I'm not mistaken, that the business people who oppose your propositions are tied to city council members, et cetera.
Yeah, Dallas Citizens Council, Downtown Dallas, Inc., it's TREC. These groups, a lot of these groups have a lot of parts of Dallas history over the past 15 years that they want to revise. We have to remember that billions of dollars was plundered out of the pension, billions. And we are still trying to find a solution. What's their solution? What's their answer? They don't have one. This provides a definite way to fund the pension over many years. We got ourselves into this horrible mess, And so now we have to fund the pension to make sure that the police the police and firefighter are protected.
Well, they have come up with a way, because it has to be presented before the state legislature this coming session in January.
Well, I'm anxious to see the details, but they don't have a plan to get it solvent.
But my question on the business angle is, I mean, if business interests are, they're the ones, I mean, we've seen all the progress that Dallas has made. I mean, all you have to do is look out in downtown and you look up in
Some
uptown.
progress.
Well, there's a lot of people moving into the city.
Moving into suburbs.
Right, but there's still...
Population in Dallas is stagnating.
That's true. But at the same time, you're looking around, there are a lot of cranes up in Dallas, okay? And we know that.
That's great, but you've also got a lot of businesses closing every day in downtown Dallas. I went to a downtown Dallas public safety meeting, and a bunch of the residents were furious with DDI that they were coming out in opposition to this without even talking to their members. And so you have a small group of people that is also trying to claim a number of false positives and trying to claim that crime is lower than it is because the city is not able to respond to any property crime. The fact that you're not responding to burglaries, to vandalism, to serious violent crime. I witnessed a robbery at my grocery store just a couple of weeks ago, and I complained to the manager, I called the police, we can't take a complaint. The store says, well, we just don't even file complaints. That's the reality.
Well, you saw a robbery?
Yeah.
So someone being held up?
No, they were stealing all sorts of things from the grocery store. They filled up a massive bag, and on the way out, they were cussing out the store manager and the security guard who was armed, and they warmed up some food and stood there for about a minute and a half to warm up their food on the way out, where they were cussing at the customers and cussing at the manager, and there's nothing going to be done about it.
So that was theft, but was anybody bodily threatened?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details of that incident. I mean, but bottom line is, yes, look, if somebody's going into a store, there was a number of people that were threatened. There was a number of people, if somebody's robbing a store and somebody's,
Was
a
it
number
at
of people
gunpoint?
running out of there. I could not tell if the guy was armed or not, so I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but bottom line is, you know, I was furious with the store. I was furious with the security guard. And look, I'm upset that the Dallas Police Department won't take a complaint from a citizen. They'll only take it from the store manager. But guess who's paying for those extra prices every time somebody walks in there and just takes whatever they want? And look, there's shops all over town that are closing. The very first lady, it actually wasn't Monty Bennett, the very first lady who gave me a check for this told me that she was in a store and she's standing there, and all of a sudden the ladies in the store start backing up. She's panicking, and she realizes guys just coming in, just grabbing everything from the front of the store. And one of the ladies says, "He's back." And she's like, "What do you mean? Has he done this before?" And they said, "He did it earlier this morning." So we're talking about people coming in, grabbing thousands of dollars worth of merchandise and leaving. Those stores are closing. That affects Dallas. Those people are threatened. Those ladies that are traumatized, that were moving to the back of the store, that's real. The fact that, you know, he didn't need to pull a gun on them to hurt them. He hurt them.
So this lady, the small business owner?
She's a housewife, but.
Okay. But she heard about it and she came to you, and
Yeah.
she was your first donor.
Yeah.
And before Monty Bennett.
Yes.
So you came up with the HERO initiative.
No, I did not come up with the HERO
Okay.
initiative. So I joined when it was time to get the petitions going and to make sure we got the adequate number of petitions.
So whose idea was all this?
It was a number of people who responded to all the headlines that Dallas was no longer going to be responding to property crime. Police were no longer going to be giving any response to it when stores are robbed, when our district attorney decides he's not going to prosecute theft. All these headlines ultimately came to a number of attorneys coming together and coming up with language and saying, how can we address this problem? And ultimately it was decided by a group that we need to have a citizen-driven petition, because after years of trying to get some kind of sensible solution to get the city council back to just the bare minimum of 3 officers per every 1,000 citizens, exactly what we're saying, had failed. Year after year after year after year. Mike Rawlings never came up with a solution. Nobody else has come up with a solution. Enough is enough. We're putting a floor in the charter. And so that's what the people got together and said.
And these are City of Dallas attorneys. And
Yes.
in other words, not that they work for the City of Dallas, but they are private attorneys who work and live in the City of Dallas who
Correct.
came up with this?
Yeah.
How many?
I don't have an exact number. I mean, the ones that I'm aware of is less than 10, but it was a group, and they started pitching around language. Well, how would you address this? Or, oh, wait, when you put this in, how would you thwart that? And that's part of the reasons why you have S, T, and U are so important together, because you can't just say you want more police if you have a city council that doesn't even regard the law. Let's not forget that this city council that has no regard for the law is the same city council who deliberately tried to mislead and confuse voters. Let's not leave that fact out. That's not a small thing. The Supreme Court of Texas found that our current city council deliberately intended to mislead and confuse voters. That is a very big deal.
And that's true, and they rule against the city. Now, would these group of less than 10 attorneys be willing to come forward and tell us who they are?
You know, well, some of them have already spoken out. As you know, Stephanie Carter is, you know, she's still on board, a part of our team. Some of them, you know, consulted with us when we were working on our mandamus petition before the Supreme Court. So some of their names are already public. I'm not going to speak on any of their behalf, but if you'd like some more names, I'm happy to get those to you.
Okay. Pete Marocco, Executive Director of the Dallas Hero Initiative. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and vote propositions STU on Election Day. Dallas needs it. More security, more accountability, and we want the enforcement of the rule of law. Thank you.